Shalom, guys. Welcome back to another episode here at YASHAV Ministry with Casa Israel. Like I always say, thank you for being there. We're going to continue with this week's Torah portion, Vayishlach. We're in Genesis and the book of Bereshit. We'll continue Jacob's story. And it comes to a beautiful culmination after all the chaos, all the stress, all the struggle that he has gone through. After that vision he's seen at Bethel, after fleeing from his father's house, after taking the birthright, rightfully so, he has been experiencing a lot of trials and tribulations, but at the end, he has been blessed with a great family, and he's been fruitful and highly favored by Adonai. So we will see how this culminates in the fifth portion, which Vayishlach. So let's get started. So Vayishlach, we start in Genesis chapter 32, verse 3, to chapter 36, verse 43. And after that, the prophet's portion is Obadiah, chapter 1, verses 1 through 21. And the Hebrew, or the Brit Hadashah portion is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 11 through 20. Jacob's escape. So we are in the end of Jacob's escape, right? And as we resume it again, the story of Jacob in Laban's household, we find him completing 20 years of service, his material success, and on an envy of Laban's sons, and he made up his mind to return home. And prompted by a divine call, with the backing of his wives, Jacob assembled the members of his family and gathered together his possessions and awaited a suitable opportunity to slip away. Okay? And now, the reaction of Rachel and Leah to Jacob's suggestion of the flight or leaving can now be understood through the newsy material. The women declared, have we still a share in inheritance of our father's house? Are we not reckoned by him as outsiders, for he has sold us and then used up our purchase price? So obviously Laban has been taking advantage of Jacob. That's why he leaves. And he has taken advantage of his daughters. And so they take the Therephins, which represent the title of land, of property, of inheritance, because in those times, if women did not either have children or didn't have a husband, then if they don't have inheritance to their name, then they become widows and they want to have nothing to fall on, right? So they needed security, and so the daughters of Laban and the wives of Jacob were worried about this inheritance that they were going to lose. But the first part of this complaint fits well with what is known of the inferior status of foreign slaves in Nuzi. An outsider deprived of low relatives who could supply protection or demand redress would be likely to object of exploitation. As to the second sentence, the reference is most probably to the marriage arrangement which Laban had made with Jacob, exacting from his 14 years of service in payment in the bridal price for his two wives. Normally, the groom deposited with the bride's father or guardian a sum of money to be settled on the bride. In this case, the service of substitute for money. The regularity for the bridal price payment in the biblical Hebrew is a muhar. In our last, the word kefet is used. In the Nuzi documents, the same word is something employed instead of the usual technical term. So obviously, the daughters of Laban became employed or slaves, or tied to that agreement that Jacob and Laban had. right? And so everything was tied to that accord. So this is why when Jacob decides to flee, Laban is worried because Jacob has been the source of blessings and prosperity to this point, and everything that has been agreed on covenantal is tied to him. So if he leaves, then Jacob takes God and takes, his daughters and his grandkids, which are his, you can say, his access to inheritance through Jacob, right? And so he follows Jacob. They make a covenant, and so Jacob is able to free himself from that. Now, from there, we jump to his new journey, right? Because now that he has passed those 14 years of work, he has had his wives, his children. Now he has to go and continue to live out the promise, because now he has become a family, which will eventually become a nation, and that is the promise that is given to him. Now he has to go back home. But if he goes back home, he has to encounter the past. Okay? So Jacob also went on his way, and the angels of God met him, right? And it's interesting because the narrative jumps back to the angels and messengers, and this is where Jacob left before he got to Laban, right? So before he got to Laban, messengers, vision he sees from heaven, the staircase, and now on his way back, in his resuming, he sees the angels again. And so Jacob saw them and said, "This is the camp of God." So he named the place Machanaim. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He instructed them, "This is what you are to say to the Lord Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there till now. I have cattle, donkeys, sheep, goats, male and female servants. Now I'm sending these messages to the Lord, that I may find favor in his eyes." When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he's coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups, the flocks and the herds and the camels as well. He thought, if Esau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may escape. Then Jacob prayed, "O Adonai, of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Lord, you have said to me, go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I am unworthy of all these kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two camps." So here, it is very interesting how Jacob presents himself. And obviously, yes, he's in a very vulnerable situation, very stressful. He's worried because the last time that he left the land of his inheritance, Esau said that he was going to kill him after his father passed away. And so now that he is trying to send a message to let him know, "Hey, I'm coming through this land. I have gifts and I have the ability to pay for this transportation through the land, if you're willing to take the gifts and the payment." And his brother says, "All right, instead of receiving and waiting for you, I will go and meet you and receive you." But obviously Jacob is taking this as a precautionary measure, because now it's not just him, but it's his family and those people that have been added to him. And so now he's thinking about protecting those out around him and, being wise. And sometimes that is good, but he then does a prayer, and he is very direct with God and says, "Everything I have, you have given it to me." Right? Before I crossed the Jordan, I had nothing, only a staff, which is cool because it lets you know where Jacob is and what kind of a person Jacob represents and portrays. Right? There is humbleness to him. And so it's good to see. Now, "Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid, and he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper, and I will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted." He spent the night there, and from what he had with him, he selected a gift for his brother Esau. And he instructed the one in the lead, "And when my brother Esau meets you, ask, 'Who do you belong to?' and where you're going, you who owns all these animals in front of you, then you are to say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and he is coming behind us. He also instructed the second and third and all the others who follow the herds. You have to say the same thing to Esau when you meet him. And be sure to say, your servant Jacob is coming behind us. For he thought, I will pacify him with these gifts, and I am sending ahead. Later, when I see him, perhaps he will receive me. So Jacob's gift went ahead of him, but he himself spent the night in the camp. And so here, the method is simple. Humble yourself to your brother, right? And you need to find peace and reconciliation with your brother. And that's what I'm seeking. This is what I'm seeking, right? And so Jacob does that. And so it's very interesting because there's a very important part that we will read. But it says that Jacob bowed down to the ground 7 times. This practice is a protocol used when a vassal has an audience with his superior. Most notably, the petty city-state kings of Canaan speak of themselves as acting this way towards the Egyptian pharaoh in the Amarna letter. So this is a custom. And so it is not a worship per se, it's more of a reverence. And so Esau is the older brother. And Esau is, to an extent, a powerful representative of the land where Jacob is trying to come back to. And so instead of coming and offering war and fighting, he offers peace and he submits himself. The same way that Abraham also at one time, when he wanted to buy the cave of Machpelah, he also bowed down and recognized authority where there was in land, right? So here, this is what Jacob is doing, right? So he's not worshiping him. He's just, to an extent, following a custom of the time to his brother. So Jacob looked up, and there was Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 female servants. He put the female servants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph in the rear. He himself went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times, and he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around him, his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. And then Esau looked up and saw the women and the children. Who are these with you? He asked. And Jacob answered, they are the children God has graciously given your servant. Then the continuation, there's a discussion. They communicate, they express why they are there and how they got there. And then they are having a moment of reconciliation, brother to brother. Esau then offers to continue together. Jacob says, no, I'll stay behind because even though we have reconciled, your destination is different than mine, right? I have a mission and I have a purpose. I am the firstborn and I have the birthright and I have the responsibility to carry on this promise that was given. And so, but it's very interesting that before Jacob is able to fulfill this mission and this purpose with his family and his children, in his trail, in his walk, you see how he's tested by Laban, who he persevered. But now he is called to heal those wounds from the past and confront them and outgrow them. And he does a great job. And the best way he does it is by humbling himself. And whenever he is a question of how he has gotten what he has gotten, and who represents everything that he has is Adonai, right? And he's very conscious of who he is and where he comes from. And he understands that nothing that he has is by his own merit, but because God promised. God promised this to him. And so the only reason why he has it is because Adonai is good. And he promised that he would give it to him. And he has it because of that. And so I think it's a very beautiful way to pay attention to Jacob's character and how that is going to, in part, represent what Joseph becomes in his walk. Because obviously we see a lot of drama in the next 12 portions with the brothers and how they treat each other, and how envy and the division between the brothers, because some are sons of the loved wives, some are of the not so loved wives, some are sons of the concubines, right? So there is a lot of chaos there, but the essence of Jacob is carried through Joseph, right? And that essence is seen here, right? Because even though we see these stories and the narratives describing their surroundings and how they have behaved and how they have dealt with certain situations, the narrative is also portraying and describing who they are at the core. And obviously, in these crucial moments, whether it be approaching his brother, fighting the man or the angel, confronting his brother, in the continuation of his story, Jacob represents or embodies humbleness and recognizes that everything he has is thanks to God and his promise to his fathers. And so I feel that that is a great way to stop here. That's all I got. Very simple, very quick, very short, to the point. But obviously for the next 2 videos, we'll get into a lot more things, and we will start understanding why is this situation with the brothers happening, and how do we get to Joseph, right? Because how does the promise that is given get distorted in these children? So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. If you did, Baruch Hashem. If you reviewed, Baruch Hashem. I don't know anything. I just know what I know, and I appreciate you guys listening. Shavua Tov and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.